A civilization's final days. After this, you're standing in an ancient Aegean city at what seems to be the height of civilization. Cities are thriving in prosperity, trade is flourishing, art and philosophy are experiencing their golden age. Ships continuously dock at the harbor, bringing goods from every corner of the Aegean and Mediterranean. Then suddenly, on the horizon, a fleet of ships appears, growing larger and larger. First a few ships, then dozens, then hundreds heading straight for your shores. When these ships reach the coast, the lands once considered the cradle of civilization become soaked in blood. Like a sudden storm, destruction engulfs the entire city. What's fascinating is this. Despite thousands of years passing and all our accumulated knowledge, we still haven't fully answered these questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? And why did they put everyone to the sword? Today, we're going to shed some light on this darkness. Together, we'll examine the secrets of the mysterious SeaPeoples, the tribe that went down in history as the ones who triggered the collapse of the Bronze Age. Welcome to another episode where we uncover historical mysteries. The domino effect in history. In 1950, when U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower explained that communist movements in Vietnam could spread to Southeast Asia and affect all countries in the region, he used the domino analogy for the first time. This showed us how one event can start a chain reaction and lead to massive consequences. The SeaPeoples incident is exactly this kind of domino effect in action. Keep this concept in mind as we dive deeper into this mystery. The Golden Age of Bronze. To better understand the SeaPeoples, we first need to take a brief look at the final periods of the Bronze Age, developing from approximately 3000 BCE and lasting until 1200 BCE. The Bronze Age was an era of tremendous leaps that witnessed humanity's first major civilizational breakthroughs. Great kingdoms and empires rose from Egypt to Mesopotamia, from the Aegean to Anatolia. Craftsmanship, maritime trade, architecture, and agricultural technologies developed significantly. In what we today call the cradle of civilization, Anatolia and the Mediterranean basin, different peoples coexisted in both competition and cultural exchange, developing rapidly. Writing systems evolved quickly during this period. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mesopotamian cuneiform, and the Aegean's Linear B enabled the recording of administrative and economic activities, beginning the process of documenting human civilization on a large scale. Intense commercial relationships existed between these regions. Tin and silver mines in Anatolia spread throughout the region via eastern Mediterranean ports. Large trading ships fed by Egypt's grain warehouses sailed the Aegean and Middle Eastern waters. Despite occasional disagreements, this was truly a period of prosperity where science, philosophy, art, and commerce developed rapidly. The Gathering Storm. However, starting from the 13th century BCE, dark clouds began gathering over these shining civilizations. Some experts even say that the social, economic, and environmental problems of this period created a perfect storm. For example, Professor Cline, in his work 1177, The Year Civilization Collapsed, states that a chain collapse occurred due to the extreme interdependence of the period's trade networks. A political or ecological crisis in one place could turn into a wave affecting the entire region. Remember, we experienced a similar global trade network collapse during COVID times. The more complex a system becomes, the easier it is to crash. In addition to trade network problems, the great empires faced long-standing throne fights, succession issues, and economic crises. Internal rebellions in the Hittite Empire, increasing political divisions in Mycenaean city-states, droughts, earthquakes, and famines, a series of natural disasters had severely reduced the empire's resilience. Civilization had reached its limit. In this fragile period, historical records began talking about a new actor: communities from the sea. The mysterious warriors. Although the existence of these communities first appears clearly in Egyptian records, Archaeological remains also link layers of destruction in Anatolia, the Levant, and the Aegean with this mysterious people. Some researchers state that the SeaPeoples were not a single community but a confederation of groups with different ethnic origins. This is a very logical approach because the destruction was incomprehensible. Historians tightly connect the collapse of the Bronze Age with the SeaPeoples' attacks. The key question is, did these mysterious warriors deal the final blow to already crumbling civilizations, or did they completely trigger the collapse? The scale of destruction. To understand the magnitude of what the SeaPeoples accomplished, let me give you modern examples. Imagine one day an unknown nation landing on American, Canadian, and Mexican coasts, completely destroying Mexico and Canada, and bringing America almost to the brink of extinction. Impossible, right? But it doesn't end there. Imagine that later, the same mysterious nation went to China, invaded it, and brought it to its knees, then maintained their pace and flattened Japan, and finally plundered Turkey's Mediterranean coasts before disappearing. And they did all this destruction in just a few decades. Something similar happened almost 300 years ago. Many civilizations equivalent in power to the countries I just mentioned were either destroyed or brought to their knees by an unknown people, and those who knelt eventually disappeared in the following years. Because of this incredible destruction and the limited sources left to explain the incident, solving the identity of the SeaPeoples is considered one of history's most difficult riddles. Egyptian sources mention various groups with names like Peliset, Shekelesh, Cheker, Denyen, and Weshesh. These names lead some researchers to believe these peoples are related to the Aegean Islands, Southern Europe, or the Anatolian coast. However, precise identification hasn't been possible yet. Some even put forward ambitious interpretations, such as them being early ancestors of the Etruscans. Now, some of you might be thinking, could they be Vikings? But that's impossible because the Vikings won't appear on history's stage for hundreds of years. If we go to extreme claims about the SeaPeoples, we can find people claiming they're Atlanteans from underground, groups that periodically destroy human civilization, or even that they came from China, wreaked havoc, and returned to China again. Frankly, the subject is so vast that we could even include such exaggerated narratives. Ultimately, a mysterious force from the sea consumed the superpowers of the time and disappeared. The collapse of faith. This destruction created such a great trauma for the people of that period that their beliefs were also shattered. And yes, this matters greatly. Indeed, all civilizations on the Mediterranean coast, one by one, especially people in civilizations like Egypt and the Hittites, because we have more resources from them, cried out, "Why didn't our protective gods come while all this destruction was happening? Our temples were destroyed by heathens and barbarians. Our families were massacred. Why didn't they intervene?" In the following years, the throne of polytheistic religions began to collapse. Starting from the Iron Age, whether you call it coincidence or not, the monotheistic belief systems of Abrahamic religions began spreading more rapidly during this period. The key region was the land called Canaan. Deep traumas have serious effects on people's beliefs, regardless of the age. You can see the most current example of this in the Middle East right now. If you examine various international forums, you'll see that the vast majority of people whose faith is based on symbolic concepts rather than grasping the essence lose their faith because angels didn't descend from the sky. This happens to Muslims today, Christians tomorrow, then Jews. After all, as I've always warned, if you don't grasp the essence of the matter and symbolic things form the basis of your religion, someone will definitely destroy it one day. This video should be noted here. I believe that in the next 30 years, such events will occur that people will largely abandon their religion out of rebellion against what's happening. They believe in purely symbolic concepts rather than the essence of the matter. And after those events, these symbolic beings won't come, just like the symbolic deities that Bronze Age civilizations believed in didn't come, and therefore millions will lose their faith. For this reason, major traumas trigger major changes in the long run, just like that domino example, and may even cause humanity to take a completely different path. Perhaps the thing the SeaPeoples least expected was this kind of religious and cultural change, but it happened one way or another. But we still haven't gotten the answer to our main question. Who were these people and where did they come from? And more importantly, what were their purposes? Let's look for the answer, because the answer won't show us Atlantean warriors or ancient aliens, but it will point to a much more dangerous and much more real threat, that we ourselves are the danger. Egypt's testimony. The only great civilization that survived the SeaPeoples' attacks and managed not to collapse in the subsequent period was ancient Egyptian civilization. Both Pharaoh Ramesses II and his successor Ramesses III had serious struggles with this community. Ultimately, Ramesses III completely defeated these attackers. The reliefs at Medinet Habu Temple also tell us about this great victory. These victory narratives present us with important points. Huge fleets approaching the coastal region attacked to seize Egyptian territory. From land, a branch of this group attacked through Palestine and the Levant. But Ramesses dominated the Nile Delta and didn't allow the invaders to enter deep into the land. The Egyptian army made a very successful defense against attacks from land. However, this great struggle seriously injured Egypt. The treasury was emptied for the war, and a large number of people lost their lives. All these effects would weaken the new kingdom in Egypt and cause it to fall into internal turmoil in the following years. The long struggle of the two Egyptian pharaohs gives us great information about solving the SeaPeoples' mystery. Thanks to the Medinet Habu reliefs, the Karnak temple reliefs, and a few other inscriptions, we now know better which communities this tribe consisted of. Some examples. The Peliset, a community that escaped from Crete and settled in today's Palestine. In fact, this community is the reason why the region is called Palestine. The Shurden, a people from the Sardinia region, close to Italy. The Shekelesh, a people with ties to Sicily and Italy. The Teresh, a people from Troy and western Anatolia. The Luca, a people from the Lycian region of Anatolia. The list goes on, but the main pattern doesn't change. Basically, we see that all these peoples came from Anatolia, Aegean civilizations, and the southern Mediterranean basin. Moreover, not as a monolithic regular army. It's recorded that most soldiers' clothing, weapons, and types were different. In other words, they're a mixed community somehow carrying out these attacks with a common goal. But why? The domino stones fall. How did these people manage to destroy the superpowers of their time in such a coordinated manner in an era when instant communication was impossible? The answer, once again, gives us the domino effect. Now, I want to do this part with both information provided by historians and my personal analysis, because I think the logical explanation with the most common benefit is formed this way. Remember the video about Santorini I made last week? If you haven't watched it, go check it out right now before continuing this episode, because it's directly related to what we're discussing. According to this theory, as a result of the Santorini supervolcano explosion, known as Thera at that time, many superpower civilizations either disappeared or began experiencing great problems. Collapsed trade routes, thousands dying, and vast areas where agriculture became impossible due to ash. With the Minoan civilization disappearing, we see that those valuable regions were immediately taken over by Mycenaean civilizations in the following years. When the powerful civilizations of Western Anatolia collapsed, the Hittites quickly became Anatolia's superpower. However, these civilizations that suddenly gained high power quickly began to degenerate, and intrigues multiplied in their administrations. And, of course, this affected their people. By the way, while Santorini is a huge event on its own, don't think there's nothing else. The 600-year period between 1800 and 1200 BCE is known as an age of natural disasters from Turkey to Italy. The Avellino eruption at Mount Vesuvius in 1800 BCE the eruption of Etna, the eruption of Santorini, and the period known as the Great Earthquake Storm around 1200 BCE. While the region was healing its wounds, it continued to receive constant blows, and the people fell into serious depression. What do you think happens when corrupt governments come on top of all these disasters, and faith begins to collapse after the disasters? Humans naturally become creatures that will do anything to survive. At this stage, the concepts of religion, language, and race end. We all turn into communities that act on common ground to live and survive, and we burn down the corrupt people around us. An event that has happened many times in history will never change. The SeaPeoples incident is an event where this happened on a large scale and was basically organized by sailors and soldiers, normal people rather than those in government. And yes, these people crushed the administrations and city-states they hated, but the aim wasn't just destruction. It was also about escaping and surviving at the same time. That's why the narrative in most videos that the SeaPeoples only destroyed and then disappeared isn't true. Most of them didn't perish. During years of wars, some were captured, and they chose to settle in lands far from earthquakes and volcanoes. Just like the Peliset people I mentioned are today's Palestinians. Another record that strengthens this thesis is the Egyptian records. Ramesses III defeated these people but didn't put them all to the sword. He accepted those who were useful into Egyptian lands and gave them positions serving in the army or in crafts. So the man tried to turn the crisis into an opportunity. Apart from this, although we see ancient cities like Ugarit destroyed because of these people, we see cities like Byblos, Sidon, and Phoenicia rising afterward. The events are thought to have lasted around 50 years, with the chaos continuing up to 100 years. During this time, our knowledge about the period was limited as civilizations collapsed and writing was disrupted. But later, with the beginning of the Iron Age, we see humanity continuing its journey from where it left off. The Palestine connection. Let me give you another interesting piece of information about this process. You know, after Ramesses III, there's also information that many SeaPeoples had their families with them on their ships. I mentioned they settled in Egypt. In the 12th century BCE, some of this group migrated to the Palestine region, the land of Canaan, newly founded by the Peliset, and established cities like Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. Subsequently, we see conflicts between these peoples and the Israelites beginning in the region. As proof of this, the discovery of Aegean-style ceramics in excavations in Palestinian cities, the discovery of warrior culture remains showing the SeaPeoples' influence in Gaza and its surroundings, and DNA studies have determined that some Palestinians carry genetic traces of peoples who migrated from the Aegean. In fact, there are verses in the Torah stating that these people in Palestine are island people from the Aegean. I just want to give a quick note here. According to some historians, when the SeaPeoples defeated by Ramesses were exiled from Egypt, most of them, but not all, settled in the Canaan region and founded Palestine. However, according to other historians, there was already a small Peliset region there founded by SeaPeoples, but later they became a great state with the Egyptian migration. It's still an unresolved situation. In other words, the beautiful intertwined evolution of history appears before us once again. Let me confuse you a little more. I just mentioned that the SeaPeoples in Egypt migrated toward Palestine. The date of this migration coincides with the same period when Moses took the slaves from Egypt to the Promised Land, as described in Jewish records. Here's research poison for you. As we dig deeper into the history we think we know and find new findings, we see that many things are much different than we thought, right? That's why it's important to always question. If you're enjoying this deep dive into ancient mysteries, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We explore these fascinating historical puzzles every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Wrapping it up. Let me wrap things up. According to my and some historians' claims, I'll leave these sources in the description section, there was an era of natural disasters that began in 1800 BCE and lasted 600 years. In this process, especially with the eruption of the Santorini supervolcano, dozens of civilizations rapidly collapsed. Those that replaced the collapsed ones at the same speed rapidly degenerated and started experiencing internal turmoil. Meanwhile, the people, already devastated and having lost their faith due to the disasters, began to revolt. In the late 13th century and the beginning of the 12th century BCE, we see this mysterious mixed people in the Aegean and Mediterranean basins plundering civilizations there and fleeing with their families in large fleets. After many attacks and wars over approximately 50 years, we see these people settling again in Palestine, Egypt, the Levant, and Anatolia, helping establish new city-states. Likewise, we see these people exiled to the land of Canaan after the Egyptian defeat, with some appointed to various positions and given lands by Ramesses' order. After a while, we see many sea peoples in Egypt migrating to the land of Canaan and founding various ancient cities both on the way and in the region, with conflicts beginning with the Israelites. With this massive destruction and ethnic change in a short time, we see that old polytheistic beliefs were shaken and many temples destroyed. During this period, monotheistic Abrahamic religions and Zoroastrian belief spread rapidly in regions that received immigration and whose systems were changing. One reason for this was the collapse of trust in the gods of old beliefs after their failure to intervene in the destruction. We see the formation of a more philosophical creator figure whose higher position encompasses all of them and isn't based on paganism like the old ones. But over time, this philosophical creator was also transferred to belief with symbolic, human touches, especially by the Jews, causing many people today to believe in an almost physical creator sitting above when they think of God. And the destruction is coming again, this time in today's Middle East. God and his forces equipped with the symbolic narratives that many people believe in don't intervene in the destruction. I'm not talking about the Almighty Creator, that philosophical, inclusive being. A similar destruction of faith that was experienced in the Bronze Age is happening again, especially in the new generation. And the effects of this will emerge when the generation in Iraq, Syria, and Palestine grows up. So, as I mentioned in the video, it looks like we may witness religions radically changing again after about 30 years. This domino stone has the power to change things much bigger than itself, even after thousands of years have passed. The destruction of the Sea Peoples is one of the best examples of this. We think the incident ended thousands of years ago, but in fact its effects still continue and will continue to do so. Because with every decision humanity makes, with every step it takes, another domino falls. This includes even you. Don't say, "I'm a normal citizen, what's the most I can change?" Look, the belief held by almost 2 billion people today is based on the change created by one person. If we have beautiful countries today, while enemies were plundering the lands we live on, this happened thanks to handfuls of people and visionary leaders. YouTube, which you are watching this video on right now, and which disrupted mainstream media, was founded by just a few friends. So don't say, "I'm a drop in the big ocean, what can I change?" Remember, the ocean was formed by the accumulation of those drops. Just remember, things in history take a while to happen. For example, the destruction and subsequent reconstruction by the Sea Peoples, which is our subject, took almost 100 years, but in the end, many things changed. But the only thing that doesn't change is human nature. And something similar to what those people experienced thousands of years ago is happening today. A supervolcano didn't erupt this time, but the capitalism bubble is about to burst, and the world is now seeing the effects of its collapse with massive refugee influxes. It's difficult to predict what our world, cultures, and beliefs will transform into 50 years from now, because we're now in the age of information and communication, and the changes that ancient people experienced in 100 years now happen to us in 10, 15 years at most. But no matter what, it feels good to be part of this change. because it shows us why our civilization is active. I hope you too will be part of the change by learning from history and directing it, even in a small way, toward better outcomes. We don't know what our impact will ultimately be, but start by knocking down that first domino and let time tell the rest. Thank you all for watching the video. The subject of SeaPeoples, whose basic backbone I told you today, is actually a very detailed and beautiful subject with its side branches. I believe it will attract the attention of those who like to do historical research, and I think if you do research in the light of this information, you'll reach clearer results. Please don't forget to like the video, share it with your circle, and subscribe to the channel to accompany me on this journey of uncovering historical mysteries. We've got more fascinating topics coming up, including deeper dives into ancient civilizations, unsolved mysteries, and the connections between past and present that most people never see. Take care until we see you in the next video.